40 or 50 years ago, what we had was lots and lots of people in a workplace, whether it was a factory or a warehouse or an office, and lots of different people doing lots of different jobs. And if you fast forward a number of decades, what you've got is one individual who drives a number of offices, or one individual who drives a number of machines in a factory. So we have a flatter structure, we have fewer people, and it means that the world of work is no longer what it was like in our parents' and grandparents' time.
Hello and welcome to The GYFT Show, a show created to help you get your future together. My name is John Burns and I am your regular host. The GYFT Show is for senior business executives who have been made redundant due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They want to return to full-time employment or start a business of their dreams. My guest today is Henry Rose-Lee. Henry, you're very welcome to The GYFT Show.
Thank you so much. I feel very welcome and I'm delighted to be here today.
You're very welcome. Henry Rose-Lee is an expert on intergenerational diversity. She helps business executives to change their leadership and management style to get the best out of people. She was once a professional voiceover at Pinewood Studios. Henry, what is intergenerational diversity?
Intergenerational diversity is really all about different generations collaborating, working, communicating, connecting together effectively. If you like, it's really about having a family. If you think about how most of us grew up, we had grandparents and we had parents and then children and grandchildren and aunts and uncles. I'm always the mad auntie. And what you'll find is that that's a family atmosphere where different generations, different ages get together and support one another and love one another and do things together. Well, organizations are like that too. They're like a family with older and younger people, more experienced people, less experienced people, people with different perspectives. And so intergenerational diversity is all about getting people to collaborate and work together better.
That's a great example. I remember when I was working back in the 1980s in the UK, and I joined a company in Southeast London. And my first memory was the company was very top down because I was probably the youngest employee at the time in the company. And there were a lot of people who would be my age now. And they came from a background which is probably very traditional, where the man in the house was the boss. They then went into the armed forces and did conscription. And they were very regimented in their way. So it's what they said is what went. And I found that very hard to get used to it, being a younger person. Just on the subject of intergenerational diversity, I'm very much a late baby boomer. How can I modify my communication style to work more effectively with millennials, for example?
I think one of the ways to modify your communication style is to listen, and rather than speak. And so what you were explaining just then was a more conventional, traditional way of doing work. And back in the sort of 60s and 70s, there weren't many female leaders, hardly any at all. And there wasn't much in the way of management styles. And of course, in the ensuing 40, 50 years, we now have lots of management styles and levels and more women in work and hopefully more women coming up the ranks and having more leadership positions. But the first thing I would ask a baby boomer to do is to ask questions, to be curious and interested about younger people and to listen to the answer. You know, that silly thing people say that you've got two ears and one mouth. I know it's an awful cliche, but it is true. So it's about them, rather than them thinking, well, this is how it used to be when I was their age in the workplace. It's thinking about what is it like now in the workplace. I'll give an example. 40 or 50 years ago, what we had was lots and lots of people in a workplace, whether it was a factory or a warehouse or an office, an institution or an organization had lots and lots of people, and the office had lots and lots of paper and lots of different people doing lots of different jobs. And if you fast forward a number of decades, what you've got is one individual who drives a number of offices, or one individual who drives a number of machines in a factory, or one individual who drives the entire warehouse because it's computer generated. So we have a flatter structure, we have fewer people, and it means that the world of work is no longer longer what it was like in our parents' and grandparents' time. So first thing is, ask them what they're interested in, ask them what they do, and listen to the answers. That would be the first thing I would say.
Great answer. I also remember working with a company here in Dublin, in Ireland, and it was a project management company. And I remember the whole environment was very much a matrix to projectized organization. And I said to myself, I'd love to work here for the rest of my life because it was all about knowledge. How do people who will be very big into knowledge fit into a modern organization?
Well, actually, I think you've hit the nail on the head, John. It's projects. So no wonder you really enjoyed that organization where they had projectized development, because the modern day way of working is projects. And in fact, our youngest generations are used to projects because through their schooling and education, university, post-school education, often things are in a project. And it's not just agile work, which we've probably all heard about or Googled, where there are ways to get continuous improvement. It's about saying that actually your whole workforce family and everything that you do can be a series of projects with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that really encourages people to feel that they can connect and they can collaborate and that they're part of something that's bigger and better than themselves. And they're feeding into that. So I think you have absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's projects. And most modern organizations who consider themselves to be enlightened are falling over themselves to set up innovation projects or themed projects, such as quality or excellence or performance, and also other types of projects such as broken windows projects. Those two are gaining in popularity. So it's projects.
Great answer. Tell the audience all about yourself.
Oh gosh, how long have you got? A week? Short version. I started my life really as the youngest of four children, therefore incredibly babyish. But I went through school not really knowing what I wanted to do. And I went through university just because I got into university and again, didn't know what I wanted to do. But my father and my brother were in the export world. My father was in oil and my brother was export manager for Volvo, one of the few British managers actually working in Sweden. And so I got interested in export because of that. I literally just was following someone else's, view. And so I ended up being in import and export for about 7 years. And then I thought, I don't want to travel so much because, if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. If it's Wednesday, it must be Germany. And I wanted to stop traveling. I'd got married. And so I said, I'll go into UK national accounts. And I became a salesperson and promptly ended up getting divorced. So it didn't really work. And in fact, when you're a salesperson, even if you're based in your own country, you end up traveling a lot. So that wasn't a good move. But it meant that my background was solidly commercial. So by the time I got into my early 30s, I really thought to myself, I don't want to travel so much anymore. I'm not sure about import, export or sales, but I had been very interested in the learning and development world. And that's when I sort of fell into it because I was introduced by one of my sisters to a man who was running originally rock and roll bands. He was a manager, producer, engineer, and he had his own studio. And that's how I learned to be a voiceover artist and ended up doing stuff at Pinewood and things like that. But he introduced me to other ways of creating business. And I got into communications through audio. First of all, things like DVDs and then e-learning. And that made me want to go back to school. And I went back to university at 36, really, really old, and learned how to be a trainer and then a coach. And the rest is history. That's where I've remained. But about 4 years ago, I got really interested in the intergenerational piece, the fact that we've got different generations who believe different things and do different things because technology and world events changes our world. And so for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, that's what I've been doing, speaking, consulting, training and coaching on the intergenerational piece. So that's me.
Great answer. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your business?
Well, we first went into lockdown third week of March 2020 here in the UK. And for the first 4 weeks, I have to tell you exactly what I did. I drank a lot of wine and I ate a lot of Doritos. And then after about 4 weeks, I thought, this isn't working because my business just tanked. What we had just completely disappeared. No traveling, no training, very little coaching, not much consulting, everything face-to-face gone. But kind of week 5, I thought to myself, okay, well, then I'm going to become virtual. Now, I'd already been doing virtual coaching. I coach all over the world, and that had been via Zoom or Skype or Adobe or WebEx or one of the other video conferencing platforms. So I just thought, well, if I can do that in coaching, then I can do that in everything else. So I just started telling all of my clients who'd cancelled everything, listen, if you want to talk to me, I'm on Zoom or Adobe or whatever you choose. And bit by bit, one step after the other, I built the business back. So 5 weeks after the first lockdown in March 2020, I'd lost 70% of my business. And within 3 months, we'd got most of it back. And we ended up the financial year only being about 30% down year on year. So I consider that to be a success factor, having gone completely virtual. So that's what we did.
Do you think that the speaking business, post-COVID, will be all virtual or a mixture of virtual and in-person keynoting?
Yeah, I think you've got a very interesting question there, because we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know for sure. Here's my opinion. I think that virtual speaking is here to stay, and there will be much more of it. If, for example, it was around 10 or 20% of the whole in 2019, I would say it may be around 40% in 2021, 2022, as we come out of lockdowns and we get vaccinated and hopefully manage to dominate COVID rather than have it dominate us. But I think virtual is here to stay. I think face-to-face will come back. I think it will be more prestigious. I think it will be fewer amounts, and it might even be smaller groupings, because the big change in 2020 was us all getting connected virtually. I heard a statistic, which was that in March 2020, Zoom platform users numbered about 10 million. And by the end of April 2020, it was 300 million. So people just went online and went on to video conferencing in huge numbers. We're not going to lose that. We're going to keep our virtual business. But I agree that face-to-face is also important and will come back. I just think the balance will be different.
Yeah, because interesting enough now, the Irish government are introducing legislation shortly to help people who want to work from home to work from home. And there's going to be legislation put in place that will give employers the flexibility to offer work from home for a lot of employees. So I can see more and more employees going into the likes of Udemy and LinkedIn Learning to upskill and do their CPD. So there is a potential there for people like yourself to offer courses via online media. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience? How can the audience reach out to you?
If they want to reach out to me, if they Google me, they'll find Henry Rose Lee. Otherwise, I think the best thing to do is to look for me on LinkedIn. That's Henry Rose Lee. And my website is something I can never remember. It's, I think it's Intergenerational Expert, but I can't quite remember. But Google Henry Rose Lee and you'll get LinkedIn and you'll get probably all the websites. That's probably the best way to find me, I would think.
That's great. And we put a link to your website in this video.
Oh, that would be good, because I can never remember. It's like your mobile phone number, isn't it? I can never remember my own number. And so somebody says, what's your number? And I think I have to look it up. If I lost my phone, I'd be lost. So yes, if you could put the link in, that would be really helpful.
You're more than welcome. This concludes the gift show for today. I'd like to thank Henry Rose Lee for sharing her experience of life. I hope I've been able to answer all of your questions. If there's anything I've missed, please reach out to me. My contact details will be on screen. Bye for now.